There are three things that I want to say loudly. I keep on saying it, and I want myself to be heard and all of us to be heard on this. One, there is no hijab ban in Karnataka. There is no such ban, neither in Karnataka, nor in coastal Karnataka, nor in all of India, right? The world is making out to be hijab ban. Koi hijab ban nahi hai. There is no hijab ban in India whatsoever.
Namaste and a very warm welcome to Citti Media viewers. My name is Citti and I'll be your host. Before we begin this particular talk, may I humbly request you to click on the subscribe button, because this is not an appeal that we do very regularly, but this is the only way that we would know that you are constantly supporting us. Please do share our videos very generously on your social media platforms so that the work that we are doing gets some amount of recognition and support from your side. Viewers, as we have been seeing in India, there has been a very coordinated attempt to malign India's tolerant image. This has been done in coordination with local activists and Islamists who are a part of some very shady organizations who have external links with the media, with several governments in West Asia. No less than the Foreign Minister of India, Dr. Jaishankar, had to issue a statement saying that none of these claims that are being played out against India hold true. Now, the accusations against India and Prime Minister Modi in particular is being amplified to a very large extent by several sections of the media internationally and within India too. Now, the accusations are very simple. The accusation is that the BJP, led by Prime Minister Modi, has completely banned hijab and has restricted Muslim women from exercising their fundamental rights as citizens of India. Now, what started off as a simple protest by 6 particular girls in an institution that had more than 100 girls has been questioned time and again by certain sections of the media. And here on Citti Media, we have been following this case very regularly. You've seen the discussions that we had. To further continue this particular topic and to ask for updates and to question the BJP as to what their plan of action is and to set the record straight, today I'm joined by the BJP spokesperson from Karnataka, Malavika Avinash ji. Namaskara, Malavika Avre. Welcome back to the show.
Namaste.
Malavika ji, my first question to you is, all politics aside, when any human being comes across a visual where a group of boys are harassing a lonely girl, or where a woman is being asked to disrobe her burqa in front of the school gate, it does not send across the right message. Why is the BJP allowing this to happen?
You have spoken of 2 separate issues. The first one is the heckling of the girl, right? Why? Sloganeering. Harassing, I won't agree, but sloganeering happened and that led to heckling. And I completely disapprove of what happened. Because I can tell you, as a woman now, I obviously was a girl at some point and was a teenager and an adolescent. And I have been at the receiving end of this kind of, this is very, this is a kind of violence that sort of bothers you inside. They may not be physical harassment, but it bothers you and it can scar you. So this kind of heckling, I completely disapprove. And I do not buy any justification provided for the same. Therefore, I completely condemn what happened to that girl in Mandya. And why perhaps no one expected it to happen is also because that very girl admitted that it has never happened to her in the past. Therefore, this was a one-off, unprecedented event or occurrence. We all condemn it, and we will ensure that it never happens again in the future. That is the heckling part of it. You are speaking of, what did you say? Can you repeat that question, please? The second part of the question.
The woman where she's being asked to disrobe her burqa in front of the school gate. I think yesterday.
Stop. I know. Stop. I will tell you where my problem is. The terminology that you use. You see, this is toolkit terminology, which we sort of adapt so quickly.
What the media is using, so that
I know, Sharon. I'm not holding you for it. I am just saying how we fall prey to this kind of terminology. Ladki hoon, lad sakti hoon is the terminology. अरे भाई लड़की हो लड़ सकती हो तो पहले अपने घर में जाके लड़ो ना. Why should Rahul Gandhi be the president of Congress party? Why can't it be Priyanka Gandhi? Has she ever asked them? Okay, so let's not fall into the trap of this terminology. Nobody asked anybody to disrobe. Okay, disrobing is a very large word. What were they asked to do? They were asked to remove their hijab and that large black gown that they wear on their clothes before entering the classroom. Don't you have cloakrooms where these things happen, right? In a cold country or when it's raining, you take off your coat, your hat, and leave your umbrella aside. On a coat stand, you hang all of this and walk in. Yes, where perhaps the government now needs to step in is to create that cloakroom for these women, right? Because these women also, out of nowhere, have suddenly started insisting on this hijab, a culture that was not present earlier, which is what has led us to this situation. Therefore, since that culture has begun, I think the government now, I will speak to the education minister and let him know that perhaps it's better that they do this taking off of the hijab and that large black garment that they wear in a cloakroom. I think younger kids don't wear the black garment. Some women do. Fair enough. Still, I think they deserve that one room. However, to call it disrobing, I have a problem. Nobody's asking anyone to disrobe.
Fair enough. In fact, I wanted to ask you about the ongoing case in the High Court, but perhaps since the matter is sub judice, we should probably not directly answer or influence what is going to happen. But let me ask you this question, which arises from the hearings of the High Court and what the opposing counsel rather, is trying to say. If hijab is worn by choice, then what is the issue for the state? Why can't the state or the college or the school or any institution for that matter allow that to happen?
Say, I'll just quick, matter is sub judice. Audible? Okay. The matter is sub judice, therefore we won't go into the actual points of law. What we will discuss, however, is the facts. A bunch of girls, 6 of them, who otherwise did not insist on wearing the hijab inside the classroom. You see, a lot is getting lost. This has become like the Chinese whisper, the famous proverbial Chinese whisper. A lot is getting lost in the conversation because people intend to take it in a certain direction, like the term disrobe. You see, these girls who never insisted on wearing the hijab inside the classroom, always wore it on campus and right up to the college, have suddenly found the reason to do so. Therefore, the college development committee met up with the parents, with all the stakeholders, the MLA, the local MLA, the college management, all of them met up and decided that there won't be a sudden change in rules. What has always been followed will continue to be followed. And therefore, these girls suddenly felt too religious, or maybe this choice that you're saying, this religious choice suddenly was so, it inspired them so much that they have gone to court. Now, there are 2 things that the court is discussing. One is whether it is an essential tenet of Islam. Does Islam prescribe this hijab, whether it's essential to Islam or not? That's something that the court is discussing quite widely, which is why a larger bench was constituted. And we will hear at the end of it. I won't go into it because I am no Islamic scholar. So I will not speak on subjects I do not know. although I have a fair understanding what hijab is. Now, coming back to this very case itself, to me, what is appalling, if it is an essential risk, then it will override the uniform prescribed, as in the case of Sikhs wearing the turban or and so on and so on. If indeed it is a choice as they are claiming it to be and not essential to Islam, then I think the uniform ideally must override the religious practice, because it's a choice, it's not essential. This is my understanding. We will wait for the court to speak.
In fact, a few reports have emerged which suggest that the protests that have been organized, at least the first one that which was organized in Udupi, was not organic at all, and it was pre-planned. And this is something the BJP has been saying as well. But furthermore, going in deep into this campus front of India, which has raised a lot of eyebrows. What do we know about this organization, Malavika ji?
First and foremost, let me tell you that the reason these doubts arose, you do not normally suspect a few young who are among, by the way, because these girls, for all practical purposes, are below 18 and in pre-university, which is otherwise schools else country. Only in Karnataka, call it college. It's not college as engages students who are beyond the age of 18. So let's again clarify part of it. The motivation behind these girls insisting suddenly upon hijab is because of the girls itself, because earlier they did not want to wear it inside classroom. Why suddenly then? So you go back a little into the past. There was an ABVP protest where these girls participated with the hijab. Now, I do not personally have or per se have any problem with Campus Front of India or any student organization, because student organizations are meant to engage with young people who are going to further build the nation once they graduate. So, however, whether it's SFI, whether it's NSUI, whether it is our own Vidyarthi Parishad, we don't have a problem. Campus Front of India, why in particular gets eyebrows raised, is because they engage with girls or boys of a certain community only. Show me the other young people who participate in activities of Campus Front of India. Why is it that they engage only with Muslims? There must be a reason for it. And that is what leads to these doubts. And they are backed by PFI, which has been accused of, not accused in Kerala, I think it was a matter where the hands of a professor was chopped, right? PFI was involved. In coastal Karnataka, we have seen umpteen number of violent situations as well as murders of young people from the RSS and the BJP, and all the fingers somehow end up pointing to PFI and SDPI. Therefore, we suspect Campus Front of India of having the intent to brew trouble, and therefore having conducted this motivated campaign, picked up those girls, radicalized them, compelled them to go against the uniform.
Right. And this is
and it's all a matter of
sensitive
investigation. Let me also say, Mr. Shetty, that it's all a matter of investigation. We will know. So these are just suspicions. These are not full and final reports of what could have happened.
No, you're right. Few of these organizations that you mentioned has clearly had links with terror organizations, or they've exhibited some criminal past. There's no doubt about that. But there has also been calls for banning these organizations. Now, there is an entire debate about that. Let's not get into that. But what a lot of people, perhaps the common man, is asking is that we are living through a pandemic. We have so many challenges to face. Why did the state government allow this to escalate to such a level where a judicial intervention is required? So I want to ask you, Malavika ji, is this Mr. Bommai's first big political liability?
I would say that it is a situation that was completely unexpected and perhaps unprecedented too, because how do you suddenly expect 3 or 4 young girls out of nowhere to insist upon hijab and to lead a protest? I think perhaps we should be more suspecting of young children. Is that what a government is expected to do? I do not know. Should the government become cautious about brewing political activity within campuses? That's not the government's job. You see, these very young girls have never insisted on wearing a hijab in the past. And the government allowed this process to happen. That is, first for the principal to invite these children over to have a conversation with them. That did not work. Then subsequently there was a CDC meeting called. That did not work. Then the government finally said, until we evolve a uniform across the state, please follow whatever is prescribed. This is what the government did. So, but however, what the government did not expect is that these girls would be radicalized by a certain organization, which seems to have done so now. And what we also did not expect were these large protests suddenly out of nowhere. So it's all part of some plan, which I said, I think the government now needs to get into campuses to check if all students indeed are studying or are up to something else. So,
Right.
I mean, it's unfortunate, but yes, to that extent, yes, the government is facing something that it did not expect to face. Like you said, it's COVID times. We want to start schools and colleges and allow children to get back to their routine.
Yes. And traditionally, campus politics and the campus violence that you see is not very prominent, should I say, in states like Karnataka or generally in the southern part of India. You usually see this in Jadavpur University, JNU, where it's much more of a campus culture. But for me, or for anybody who's from the south, it's more of a cultural shock when we see incidents like these. But you were also mentioning about a regressive mindset that is enabling radicalization. I have to ask you this. Congress MLA Zamir Ahmad Khan's comments have set off a new row altogether, and it has somehow exposed the mindset of a lot of Islamists. I don't want to get into the details of what he said. Everybody knows it's out on the internet. But this, what I found peculiar was that just a few media organizations carried this report and not a lot of them did. Initially, as well, when these six girls were protesting, only a handful, media outlets picked this up and they amplified it to such an extent where they got certain allies in the media across the globe. So, do you think media has played a very shadowy part in this entire episode?
You see, what has happened is ours is a democracy, which I think has come of age. It's 75 years now. It's high time we implement one nation, one election. That's how it all began. But now we seem to have 5 elections, state elections every year, and by elections, and local body elections, and so many different elections. So when something like this, which should have stayed within not even Karnataka, within coastal Karnataka and that one Dakshina Kannada district, today is being spoken of in the Pakistan parliament, or there is a write-up in New York or in Washington. So somewhere I feel the media likes to explore these issues because the intent is that it will in some way impact the impending election in some state. So having said all of this, I think it's the politicians and the media, right? Everyone is trying to somehow keep all of this burning so that it works in some election. And especially this whole, in India, what has happened with the Congress party is secularism is equal to appeasement, right? Secularism is equal to preferential treatment, while actually secularism is all about staying equidistant. The state is required to stay equidistant from all religions. However, the Congress party has made it to be secularism equals appeasement. And following in the footsteps of Congress party is your Samajwadi, is your AIMM. Of course, they are the other end of the spectrum, because they believe that only the Muslims of India should get all their rights and the rest of them can just stay quiet. So this political atmosphere grabs hold of this kind of issues which are otherwise very, very regional, and in this case restricted to one single college. Therefore, Everyone has a role to play in this because everyone is looking for political gain. And it's unfortunate, at least the BJP, because we are in government here, we want to resolve this issue and allow the girls to go back to school and, resume their normal routine. So we are not looking to do it. However, I will, agree that yes, the atmosphere is vitiated because of this, because it is not such a large issue. There are two, three things that I want to say loudly. I keep on saying it, and I want myself to be heard and all of us to be heard on this. One, there is no hijab ban in Karnataka. There is no such ban, neither in Karnataka, nor in coastal Karnataka, nor in all of India, right? The world is making out to be hijab ban. Koi hijab ban nahi hai. There is no hijab ban in India whatsoever. This one college, the discussion is between, whether uniform is more important or for these girls to suddenly insist and wear these hijabs. That's all is the matter. Coming back to Zamir Ahmad. See, the problem with people like Zamir Ahmad and all his colleagues in Congress party is the Shah Banu mindset. I like to call it that. The Shah Banu mindset. 40 years ago, Shah Banu goes to court and says, please give me maintenance, because this police husband of mine, he was a sub-inspector, I would think, this police husband of mine is not giving me compensation. He has thrown me out of the house. And then she goes to court, and finally the matter lands in Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court says, it doesn't matter what religion you belong to, you have a right under CRPC to get your compensation. It was barely 500 rupees a month in those days. And what does the Congress party do? It uses its mammoth majority in parliament, because Rajiv Gandhi has 400 in parliament. It's soon after Mrs. Gandhi's assassination. Therefore, he has a mammoth majority in parliament, and he brings about a law which takes away the rights of these women forever. Why? Because he wanted to appease. So it comes back to secularism equals appeasement. And that has been followed for years on now. And in 2018, that Supreme Court Shahina Banu Begum case, upon which our parliament also legislated, that is the BJP government also legislated. What did it do? It gave back the rights to women, right? So it took 30, 40 years to reverse the kind of injustice that Muslim women had been suffering. So there is a Shah Banu mindset to push these women behind the parda, to push them in the background so that they don't ask questions. Because for people like Zamir Ahmad, the fear is, what if these girls get educated? Then what happens? They will start questioning all the wrongs that are happening to them. Polygamy, for example, perhaps one of the very few countries in the world which permits a Muslim man to have 4 wives at the same time. These girls on education, I am sure, will start asking those questions.
You're extremely right. Thank you for those comments. And in fact, if there is a common sentiment that is shared with all of our panelists that we've had over the last 1 week, specifically to discuss the hijab issue, the one thing that everybody agrees on is that this particular incident has completely taken away the hopes of any reforms within the Muslim society, which almost seemed possible because of triple talaq ban and things like that the Modi government has enabled in the last few years. So but I want to ask you this before we conclude. The Modi government, although they have tried to introduce several reforms, whether it's the farm law or abrogation of Article 370, but they have also faced setbacks where they had to withdraw the farm laws, right? Now, at a very crucial juncture where we are discussing the possibility of a uniform civil code, how confident is your government of implementing this?
You see, the uniform civil code will probably make India as secular as it can get in the true sense of the word. Because now, as it exists, law as it exists, is different personal laws are meant to govern different sets of people. Hindus have their own, Muslims have their own, Christians have their own. And this uniform civil code will bring together all of these communities. And there are some practices within each community which are not very desirable and which are violative of rights of women. Right? Now, The difference between Islamic law and Hindu law is we have allowed codification of the Hindu law, whether it's the marriage, whether it's succession, and these codifications are quite lengthy and have been dwelled upon by multiple courts. So today, if I were to say this, a Hindu woman has equal right in property, which is not so among Muslims. Why is that? Because different laws govern different people. So from the point of view of injustices done to some people, it's best that we have one common civil law which governs all communities, thereby making it secular. However, because secularism equals appeasement for some in this country, they have been resisting uniform civil code because they want to appease the Muslim community, which will perhaps face the brunt when it comes to uniforming, creating a uniform civil code. Because polygamy, like I said, which is so regressive and so anti-women, exists in that community. So if we legislated on triple talaq and there was so much furor over it, if today we say that please take off your hijab to maintain uniformity inside a classroom, and there's so much furor, you can imagine what will happen if we were to end polygamy with a law. So if you ask me, I urge all the secular-minded people to take the hijab off their veiled minds and to look at the reality as it stands today. Women across the world are fighting against being, pushed behind the veil. And I find it amazing that some of our most forward, what do you call them, progressive and, women who are liberal and who are, what else are they called? They are feminists. So these are the women who are saying the hijab is a choice, while they themselves don't wear it. Their children don't wear it.
Yes.
And they're saying it's a choice. How can it be the choice of a 10-year-old girl? Does a 10-year-old girl know why she's wearing a hijab, or if she should wear a hijab? Is that a choice? Please.
Right. Malavika ji, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a very interesting conversation, and you've addressed some of the talking points that the media has been playing out in the last few days. And in fact, somebody no less than the Foreign Minister of India had to step forward and give a statement that this is being miscommunicated, because our relations are perhaps at the best with countries from the Middle East or West Asia, as we call it. And this can disrupt a lot of things, because especially if it is miscommunicated, right? And it has an overarching impact on the economy, on our bilateral relations and things like that. But you took on a lot of questions directly. Thank you so much for that. And it was lovely having a conversation with you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.